Guys, you know me. I love the Switch 2 a ton. And in my earlier videos, I tried to downplay this issue because I really didn't think it was going to become a problem. I poo-pooed it because I didn't feel like it was an issue. But the more that I think about it and the more that I see about it, the harder it becomes to ignore. And I'm talking obviously about the battery life. New data has been published and tracked and monitored that shows the Switch 2 battery life for Fortnite is 2 hours, for Cyberpunk 2077 is 2 hours, and for Mario Kart World is 2.75 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's really, really low, and lower than I think I wanted to let myself believe. So today we're going to talk all about the battery life, if it's becoming a serious issue, or if it's just the cost of the better Switch 2, and will Nintendo address it? Because I have some evidence to show whether or not they're going to handle this, and it's pretty interesting. And please let me know how you feel about this. Is this just something we got to accept? Or are you coming up against this roadblock where you're like, I want to keep playing my Switch 2, and the battery life is bugging me. Like, I'm going to need to buy a portable charger pronto because this is becoming a problem. And like this video that you're watching right here, this is going to eat up about 8% of your Switch 2 battery life if it's playing and not plugged in. That is madness. One video, nearly 10% of your battery life. Like, I love playing the Switch 2, and I just plug it in. It goes straight to the dock after I'm done. Dock. And, you know, I've got a baby kitten here, so I've been just kind of like back and forth, and I haven't had that long, like, you know, just like huge 4-hour session. I've played for like an hour and a half, charger, hour, charger, 45 minutes, charger, 2 minutes, then I have to get the kitten, charger. I'm learning that I have not had any of the use cases where I'd find out this battery life, and I don't think a lot of people have, because when we see it published and when we see it tracked, it's pretty shocking. All right, these battery tests have been done by various sources, YouTubers, websites, etc., and we've kind of come to some consensus timers for certain games. Fortnite is lasting 2 hours and 13 minutes on the Switch 2, and I showed you in my graphics video that like Fortnite definitely looks remarkably better and runs remarkably better than it does on Switch 1, but the Switch 1 battery life for Fortnite was 2 hours and 31 minutes. Now here's the really interesting part, and we're going to save this discussion for later in the video. The OLED with Fortnite ran for 5 hours and 24 minutes, which is a crazy amount of time. All right, pin that in your brain and remember it. 5 hours for the OLED compared to 2 hours and a half for the Switch 1 and 2 hours for the Switch 2. Cyberpunk is basically 2 hours flat, 2 hours and 1 minute. That's in 30 FPS quality mode. And then Mario Kart World, some people said like Mario Kart World was 2 hours and 5 minutes. Some people said Mario Kart World was 2 hours and 47 minutes. It's all going to depend on how you have the brightness, if you're connected to the internet, etc., how you're running this game, what settings you have exactly tweaked. But regardless, Cyberpunk and Fortnite are right at 2 hours, and Mario Kart World is definitely under 3 hours. Those are very short amounts of time. Those are quick bursts, and those aren't even going to make my flight back to see my family complete. Like, I will tap out of Switch 2 battery before I even get to Indiana, which is kind of weird and kind of crazy because even though the Switch 1 battery life wasn't all that grand, I never had that problem as they talked about 2.5 to 4 hours of battery life, and I felt like the way I played it, I was always getting closer to 3.5, 4 hours. Then when I got the OLED, I forgot about battery altogether, and I didn't really think about it. I would take my OLED on plane flights, on trips, on travels. I would not charge it for a long time. I wouldn't even dock it for a while if I wasn't recording a video, and I would be able to play what I felt was a substantially longer amount of time and more games without having to worry. And now it's quite clear that the Switch 2 ain't that. And I expected it, and I talked about that in my review. Like, I know this system is going to have a worse battery, duh, because it's way more powerful, and that is sort of the trade-off to be able to run these games looking beautiful. And I love Cyberpunk 2077 on the Switch 2 handheld. I love Mario Kart World on the Switch 2 handheld. I love Konutsugami. I love these games that look so good, Fast Fusion, and I wouldn't want to trade their visual performance and their gameplay smoothness for a longer battery life. But at the same time, I'm like, this is super short. And this is the case for any system that's trying to do a portable play with console quality games that could run on a TV and look gorgeous, and they're looking pretty darn awesome, spiffy as can be, on their portable screen. This is not a Nintendo problem. This is a handheld console problem, but the 2 hours is really, really light. And I'm wondering how this is going to affect players and if it's going to become more of an issue, because I feel like right now, people are playing Mario Kart World. They're playing Mario Kart World, maybe they're playing some Cyberpunk, maybe they've dabbled in some other games, but most people are probably playing short session games. Like, go do a knockout tour to, what is that, like 35, 40 minutes? go beat a level in Kanutsugami, go play a little Deltarune, do some fast fusion races, maybe mess around in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Obviously, you could extend those sessions longer, but I kind of fear that a lot of players are just starting off with like jumping around, testing things out. And as we get more and more games, as the games get more and more expansive and huge and new, that battery life is going to become really obvious really quick. It's going to slap you in the face, and all of a sudden, your Switch 2 is going to need to be charged very often. Now, there's a lot of things we can do to address this, and is it going to be a fatal flaw? Is it going to be something that ends up being like a major problem for Switch 2 players? I feel like that is TBD. I don't think it should be a major issue because, like I said, this is across the board something that every portable console with power has to deal with. But I could see some people starting to get a little annoyed, especially when they think like, hey, I'm not playing Cyberpunk, I'm playing Fortnite, or I'm not playing some huge open world game, I'm playing Mario Kart. And like they are not getting the battery life that they feel they deserve or they feel they expect, or they feel they got on Switch OLED. Again, 5.5 hours on Switch OLED be crazy. Now, I think that there's nothing to do, right, from like unlocking your Switch 2. You can turn on the brightness or whatever, but the ultimate solution is going to be to get a portable power pack, to get a charging case, to get something of the sort so when you are on the go, you don't need to carry your dock around. You can just carry around the AC adapter. It's basically like an iPhone charger, and it's got the USB-C cord, and frankly, I think that's really easy and probably how I will always go. I'll just have that with me. But for instances where you don't have access to a plug, or you don't want to carry around the charger, or you don't want to like sit and wait and be tied to a wall, you're going to want that portable battery pack, that portable charger, and you're going to need to invest in that, and you're going to need a lot of power because this is a powerful system that's going to drain it quick. Now, I think that power packs, portable batteries have gone down in price significantly over the last, say, 3 to 5 years. So you can get something very affordable that is going to work for you, but it is another purchase and something that you have to add on in addition to maybe your Pro Controller, maybe your other games, maybe a second set of Joy-Con, maybe a freaking memory card. That's the storage problem, right? We're getting there. This all adds up. Now, will Nintendo address it themselves? And that's where the OLED comes in that I find so interesting. At first, I was thinking, dude, that's what Nintendo is going to do. They're going to just come out in a few years with a Switch 2 iteration. Maybe it has an OLED screen, maybe it doesn't, but bigger storage and bigger battery life. But then I was looking, and Nintendo actually didn't really advertise the Switch 2 as having a significantly better battery. In fact, a lot of their quotes are roughly the same as what they were quoting for Switch 1, when in actuality and in tests, people were finding that the Switch OLED battery was lasting far longer, exponentially longer, than the Switch 1 battery life. And that ties back to the Fortnite 5 hours versus 2.5 on the Switch 1. That's double the time. And that's not what Nintendo advertised. So I don't know if that was Nintendo not wanting to promise something that wasn't standard across the board. I don't know if that's Nintendo not wanting to downplay the battery life of their original Switch 1. I don't know if that's Nintendo just thinking battery life is taboo and we shouldn't talk about it, or battery life isn't something that fans of Nintendo are concerned about. But I'm very curious to know if they thought battery life was an important piece of the Switch OLED, and if they did, why didn't they really talk about it? If Nintendo doesn't value battery life as an important upgraded feature, will they even utilize that as something to address a mid-cycle refresh? Or will they focus instead on shrinking the console, or on bringing an OLED screen, or more obvious features that you can whiz-bang promote and advertise a lot more easily than battery life? So I don't know that Nintendo does improve the battery life. I feel like they would and they could and they should, but given that their quoted rates for the Switch OLED don't match up with what actually was happening, to me shows that they didn't really think that was a key issue. I don't know how much of a key issue this is going to become if people make a big stink about it or if people just get accustomed to it, but it's shorter than I anticipated, and it's shorter than I even thought it was, even though I knew it was shorter, if that makes any sense. Now, for me personally, like, I don't think this is going to bother me that much because I work from home and I'm lucky that I don't really have to go that many places, but I'm thinking about the 3.5 million people that bought Switch 2s over the first 4 days. I'm thinking about the 20 million people that are going to buy Switch 2s over the coming years. I'm thinking about you who have a Switch 2 and maybe you don't have the opportunity to be by a plug all the time. And knowing that if I wasn't by a plug, like I said, on that flight back home to visit my relatives, if I wasn't able to get near a plug, if I was on a long car ride or a trip or I forgot my charger, I am going to see that battery go zoop so fast. That does worry me. That does feel bad. Now, I guess the only other side of the coin here is that if you're playing less intensive games, indie titles and things of that sort, you can eke out more battery from it, and that's where we're seeing closer to 3-4 hours of gameplay if you're playing something that doesn't really take it, like a pixel 2D type indie game. If I'm playing Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, I can probably get my 3.5 hours. But most of my time on Switch 2, especially in the first year, is going to be playing these games that are awesome and look amazing and really shock us with like, dude, Nintendo did this. Like, I want to play Star Wars Outlaws on my Switch 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows on my Switch 2, Elden Ring on my Switch 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza on my Switch 2, and that means my battery is down to here. It's a small town battery trying to live a big city life. And I want to know how you feel about it. Has the battery life been affecting you? Has the battery life come up and been something that you're like, dude, this just isn't going to work great for me ever. I'm going to have to get a portable battery, portable charger, ASAP. Are you thinking that maybe down the line they will refresh this and they will add one and that will be enough to get you to purchase? But like, should we have to buy a second system just for some more battery life? Or am I blowing this out of proportion and it's just the way it is? Like, systems of this power need to be charged, and you basically have this thing with its charger constantly, and that's the way of the world. That's the price you pay for having a system that's powerful and portable. There is a cost of a hybrid. Nintendo could have made a PS5. They didn't. They made something that can do both, and that's incredible. And that brings us so much joy and so many benefits. But there's a few trade-offs, and I think so far, this is the biggest. So let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your takes in the comments down below. I'll see y'all in the next video. And until that time, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. I just burned about 8% of your Switch 2 battery life. SwitchForce out.